Welcome back. Since the S-400 surface-to-air missile system has been so much in the news, I want to show you a report filed by my colleague Shiv Arur, who visited the home of the all-powerful S-400. Here is his exclusive insight.
Regarded as the most formidable air defense missile system in the world, the Russian S-400 Triumf, which enters service with India next year. And as production of the Indian systems get underway, Battlecry gets exclusive access to the site in Russia where the S-400 is being manufactured and tested for India. I'm standing inside the test facility of the location outside St. Petersburg where India's S-400 anti-air missile systems will be produced. This is the Northwest Production Center of the Almaz Ante, the concern that will be manufacturing the S-400 for India. Where I am right now, the first entry point that we've been brought to is the very important test center where every single element of the S-400, remember it's not just the missile launcher, there are command vehicles, there are radar vehicles of every kind. Like the one behind me is a place where there is rain and dust simulation that takes place. And now for a first look at a brand new S-400 launcher vehicle rolling out. So this fully constructed S-400 launcher system has just emerged from that cold simulation facility where very, very cold conditions are imposed on every single element of the S-400 that rolls out of the Almaz Ante Northwest Production Facility here on the outskirts of St. Petersburg. The $5.43 billion deal that India signed will be executed right here at this facility near St. Petersburg. But the implications of the deal have reverberated across the world. Russia dismisses US irritation over the deal, but it remains a diplomatic tightrope for India. Now, there's a very good reason why the S-400 finds itself in the middle of all these diplomatic controversies. Because, make no mistake, there's absolutely no dispute over the capabilities of the S-400. I mean, this is an air defense system that is widely acknowledged by people and experts all over the world to be one of the finest air defense systems ever built, and certainly one of the finest air defense systems in operations today. So when you talk about the tangle between the United States and Turkey, or the continuing diplomatic sort of tightrope between India and the United States, it all comes down to the fact that this is a system that is widely seen to be highly capable. It impacts the balance of power in many places that it is deployed and has the capacity to do that in the future as well. And that's one of the reasons why you see the United States having a problem with the S-400, being bought by its allies. First Turkey and now India. The United States has supplied billions of dollars worth of equipment to India, but the S-400 somehow touches a very, very raw nerve in terms of technology. There are questions deeper than just diplomatic. One of the biggest is whether the S-400 can properly plug into India's already diverse air defense network. As we report from here at the Almaz Ante production facility outside St. Petersburg, one of the big questions that remains slightly unanswered is this high capability system is going to be plugged into an air defense network in India that has been patchy at best. It has been ad hoc in many ways. There are still very, very many gaps. And while the S-400 will provide a great degree of cover across the country and provide protection against all manner of air threats, remember that India's air defense network has many other elements and many other systems as well. With the Russian S-400 in the pipeline and President Trump pushing the American NASAMS-2 system to India, while there's no real comparison between the two, can both so-called enemy systems ever work together? Bureau Report, India Today.
So at 7 p.m. this evening, there'll be a live press conference of Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh in Moscow. Several important weapon systems in the pipeline, some already ordered, some India now wants to expedite. Joining us for perspective, Shiva Roor filed that report on the S-400. He's with us, Sandeep Unithan from India Today Magazine's with us, our Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan, and Gaurav Sawant joins us from the stunning backdrop in Leh. Shiv, first, hugely jealous of you getting to go and see these S-400s in action. All of us, whether it's Sandeep, whether it's Gaurav, Geeta also looks partly envious. Tell us, how soon does this weapon system come in? Why do you believe it's such a game changer in the context of a potential military conflict with China?
Well, the S-400, Rahul, is widely acknowledged to be, perhaps the most effective anti-aircraft missile system. This was been borne out by the fact that even the United States, which is considered a country that makes cutting-edge weapons technology, has not been very happy with India purchasing this. We saw how India navigated that entire diplomatic incident. So the S-400, in terms of its technology, in terms of its capability, in terms of its range, is one of the most feared anti-aircraft systems, simply because of its accuracy, simply because of the capability at which it can bring down even fast-moving aircraft, and therefore the umbrella of air defense cover that's provided by the S-400 makes it an extremely formidable deterrent against an aerial threat. And given that the air power from the Chinese side has been much larger and faster growing than the Indian side, the S-400 is seen as a major game changer, especially in those northern sectors. So I'm not surprised at all, Rahul. Both Sandeep and I were in St. Petersburg last year, where we had a chance to witness the S-400. And we are told that Rajnath Singh is now in Russia, and one of the key points on his agenda is to speak to the Russians and ensure there is absolutely no slippage in the delivery of the S-400s, because India needs these now more than ever.
Deep, the Chinese already have these S-400. When did they get them? Where are these deployed? Do they look towards India? Do they look towards the South China Sea? And what are the specific India modifications that have been introduced into this S-400? How is it different from what the Russians use? The reason I ask this question is one of the things that the panelists in the India-Russia-China roundtable spoke about is the possibility of something which is existing in Russian stockpile being offered to India if India really wants to expedite delivery. Does that make sense at all?
Yes, Rahul, now I want to take the latter half of your question first. Now, the fact is that India has been pushing Russia to expedite deliveries of the missile system. And the Russians have one very simple thing to say. They say, look, this is a very complex missile system. It's unlike any other in the world. It's going to take you time to understand how to use it. It's not a plug-and-play system. You have to train your crews how to man this missile. It's a very complex system. It comprises a number of moving parts. I mean, it's got launchers, it's got radars, command posts, as Shiv mentioned. It's very, very complicated. It's unlike any other missile system in the world. It's going to take us time to understand how to use it effectively. It's not like a one-off, like a Patriot missile where you have a battery, you have a radar. This is a system which has so many parts that it's going to be very difficult for one country to absorb this training in a very short span of time. So I think that is the bone of contention right now. In the old days, what would happen is that you would actually have Russian technicians coming up and setting up the facilities and doing the training. But of course, now, given the way things are, it seems very unlikely that you're going to have Russian specialists coming here. And, especially given the fact that how proficient we are at operating systems, I'm sure we would not want to have those kind of specialists on ground. When you have the possibility of, a shooting engagement with China. So that is one big area of concern. So while we press the Russians for expediting the delivery, I think the what has to be understood is that the first system is not going to be ready until next year, and it's going to be delivered towards the end of 2021. Maybe we can, shift it by a couple of months, but I don't see that coming virtually in a few weeks or months. Rahul.
Okay, Gaurav Sawant, if going forward, when a weapon system like the S-400 is deployed in the eastern Ladakh sector, how much of a difference would it make to India's ability to dominate and to defend, and to ensure that no Chinese fighter aircraft come over to the Indian side? What kind of a difference would it make in combat?
Rahul, it will be an absolute game changer. Why would it be a game changer? Well, the Growler and the Gravestone together, the S-400 system, it can look at multiple targets coming into your country, whether it's unmanned aerial vehicles, whether it's fast-moving aircraft, whether it's rockets, whether it's missiles, whatever's coming in, it can look at it at a distance 200, 300 kilometers away and acquire multiple targets simultaneously. Of course, a very complex system. It'll take us some time to master it when it comes, as Sandeep was saying, but you acquire multiple targets simultaneously and ensure whether it's a slow-moving target, like a UAV, or a very fast-moving target, either a missile or an aircraft, it can simultaneously engage both, maybe 300 kilometers away, maybe even longer, depending on the kind of radars that you have and depending on the kind of missiles that you acquire. So that goes on to indicate that even when the Chinese aircraft take off, way before they come anywhere close to India, they can be taken down in the enemy country itself, Rahul.
You were listening to the foreign minister's brief comments during the Russia-India-China dialogue. The foreign minister seemed to be pressing a lot on reforming the United Nations, and one of the key takeaways diplomatically for India seems to be that we will no longer let China dominate various UN bodies. So explain to our viewers the government's strategy, the rationale, and how it hopes to achieve this.
There are a few things that India has compartmentalized. The fact that Rahul, the External Affairs Minister of India, can sit in a trilateral meeting while the skirmish or the standoff between India and China continues, disengagement is yet to take place, goes to show that there is a bigger agenda in place over here. But the bigger agenda also includes, like you rightly said, how to corner China or ensure that India's space in the Asian world vis-a-vis the global community is spelled out very.
Okay, I lost Geeta there. What are we expecting, Sandeep, the defense minister's press conference to be about when he speaks around 7 p.m. India Standard Time? You had the full list, so we've spoken a lot about the S-400. What are the other weapon systems which we hope to expedite during the Raksha Mantri's visit to Moscow?
Well, Rahul, there's a very significant purchase of 33 fighter jets, which are, many of them are MiG-29 airframes that are still in Russia, which have to be reconditioned and upgraded and supplied to us. Then there's a deal for 12 Sukhoi 30s. These are possibly going to be the last batch of Sukhois that we will produce in India, and that will keep our production line in Nasik running for another year or so. So these are two very crucial purchases, because as you know, the Indian fighter fleet, the Air Force's fighter squadrons are diminishing over the years. And apart from the 36 Rafales that we are getting, and of course the light combat aircraft, there is no major significant increase in our combat potential. So these are going to be like a sugar rush, a booster shot in the short term. You're going to get
even though the MiG-29 is being upgraded, how would you assess its combat capabilities given what the Chinese have and the F-16s that the Pakistanis use after the upgradation?
Well, Rahul, the MiG-29
is a very different beast from what it was a couple of decades ago. So it's going to give us the kind of numbers. It's not, the MiG-29 is not a Rafale, but it's definitely not the MiG-29 that we bought decades ago from the Soviet Union. It's a very, very good, potent, capable air superiority fighter. And the main issue with the Air Force today is that it's looking at the smallest number of fighter squadrons that it has possibly since the 70s. There is, of course, that argument that 2 Sukhoi is equal to a squadron of MiG-21s. But then, as the Air Force says, that numbers have a quality of their own, and they really need those numbers. They need to match it up, make up those numbers very quickly, and they would be more than a match for anything that the Chinese can throw at us over the Tibetan plateau. Rahul.
Gaurav Sawant, I want your sense of how these weapon systems that come in from Russia and the speed at which they come in, how that impacts the dynamic. And one of the interesting things that came out of the roundtable that we just did is that Russia is actually wary of Beijing buying weapon systems, reverse engineering them, doing that infamous Chinese jugaad, and potentially, if relations between Beijing and Moscow deteriorate, as they have several times in the last several centuries, possibly using those weapons against Moscow as well.
Rahul, you've hit the nail on its head. Unlike China, India is a very reliable partner and has been in the past decades. India does not reverse engineer what it acquires of Russia. Of course, there is often talk of transfer of technology and licensed production in India. But look at whatever we are acquiring from Russia and a signal that it's sent to the United States of America. The S-400s, for example, 39,000 crore rupee worth deal. The Americans weren't in favor, but India went ahead and said, we want it, we will go ahead with it, irrespective of what America may want to do in terms of sanctions. And the Americans relented. Now the S-400s in the northeast and in Ladakh would be an absolute game changer in terms of giving us that edge over China. That's point one. Point two, when you talk about the air dominance fighters, the Sukhoi 30s, it's a huge airframe, 10 tons of weapons with beyond visual range missiles, also with radars that can scan a large distance. It will be at a huge advantage to India and a disadvantage to China. Again, with the air superiority fighters, the MiG-29. As Sandeep was saying, it's not the same that we had acquired, when the Pakistanis acquired the F-16s. So the Mirages, the MiG-29s, the Jaguar, since they're deep penetration strike aircraft, and the Su-30s give us a huge edge in this region, Rahul.
Shiv, we've been talking to Russia about purchasing or jointly manufacturing a fifth generation fighter aircraft. How is that discussion coming along? And also, we've heard the Army, we've heard the Ministry of Defence announce that locally military commanders can purchase weapon systems up to 500 crores. Is there a larger conversation about some important weapon systems, like for example a new fighter aircraft apart from those 36 fighter aircraft that we've already brought, the Rafale? Will we be buying more big ticket items because of the current military conflict with China? Shiv?
Rahul, the fifth generation fighter program between India and Russia hit a wall a couple of years ago, and India actually walked out of that program because it didn't disagree with the kind of work share that was being proposed by Russia. So that India's participation in that project has completely come to an end, even though India has committed to considering purchase of the aircraft once development of it, it's called the Su-57, is complete in Russia. But your question is very important, because there are various other smaller but no less important weapon systems that are in the pipeline between India and Russia, which have still not been signed. For instance, even the AK-203 Kalashnikov for assault rifles, which were supposed to be built in Amethi, that deal has been signed, but it hasn't been executed just yet. There are apparently some delays on that front. There is supposed to be another leased nuclear submarine that Sandeep had reported on recently to join the INS Chakra in the Indian Navy. That has also been slow moving, but it might come to light in the next 2 or 3 years. That's more at the strategic level. But at the more tactical level, in terms of equipment, we have the 33 fighter aircraft that Sandeep was talking about. Apart from that, there are long pending deals for light utility helicopters, which are extremely important, Rahul, as you know, because these are the very backbone as far as logistics is concerned, especially for the high altitude areas where some of these standoffs are taking place in Ladakh. It's easy to think of weaponization as just the offensive stuff, but utility helicopters, transport aircraft, all of these things are equally, if not more important, especially at a time when India may need to mobilize at short notice. And many of those things like transport aircraft, possibly more AN-32s, more IL-76s, the modernization of the IL-76s, light utility helicopters that are supposed to be built near Bengaluru. All of these have to come from Russia, and those haven't happened just yet. So perhaps the current situation may actually accelerate some of those things along, Rahul.
But everyone who's watching must remember, we're also in the middle of a raging pandemic. There's a huge economic recession and the government's finances are tightly squeezed. Therefore, while Shiv, Gaurav and Sandeep have been able to explain which are the weapon systems the armed forces need, the ability to purchase all of them simultaneously is impossible. So you have to prioritize, and we'll see what comes of it. You've got the best reporting team tracking this very, very closely for you. Geeta Mohan, Shiva Roor, Sandeep Onithan and Gaurav Sawant for joining us on this special broadcast. Thank you very much. We try to give you a sense of the weapon systems that are currently in the pipeline with Russia and those that could be expedited. We'll keep tracking the story very, very closely. Shiva Roor comes up next with his show 5 Live.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.